Welcome back to Educational Currency. I'm Robert Namoski, proprietor of Ultimate Jiu-Jitsu and the Coaching College.
And I'm Chris Kaladikis from Maximum Education. What are we talking about today, Rob?
Well, today we're going to look at the gentle art of bullying and how to get away with it at school, Chris.
Oh, yeah. Oh, isn't that just fantastic, Rob? That's great. Yes, that's what we're about.
That's what
here.
we're about here. No, just kidding. It's a good question. Well, mate, sometimes you need to look at this. How do you get away with bullying? And how to stop it? And what are the implications for your child, for the bully, for the parents, for the school, for everyone else in general? And coming from a martial arts background, how do you get away with it?
Oh. You can kind of get a bit of a vibe here. We're going to be on a slightly different page here, me and Rob, okay?
Sort of.
Sort of.
90% will probably be the same.
Yeah.
We are parents. We are teachers. We'll put our different perspectives into place. And basically, what is bullying?
Well, look, and I think that's an important way to kind of start off, Rob?
Yeah.
And look, I'll speak with my teacher hat on and with a bit of
Same.
hat as well, okay? But I will start off with kind of the definition that's in schools. And the way it is defined in schools, it's repetitive, it's intentional, targeted behaviour. All right. And that's what you've got to understand, because the term does get thrown out quite a lot, Rob. Yeah. You know, something happens at school, my child's being bullied. Okay. And look, there's many degrees of what that could be. It could be the children having an argument. It could be harassment that has happened. It definitely can be. But unless it's ongoing and targeted, then it won't classify as bullying. And you have to approach it in that same manner, that you've got multiple records of things happening to build a bullying case within a school.
Yeah, because working at 2 schools now, I think everyone pulls out that card straight away.
Yeah.
And it could reach a point where sometimes it's just not letting their kids solve their own problems.
Yeah.
Well, because every kid wants an angle. You have a problem, every kid wants to get that angle on top of the other kid to win the argument, to get one up on them. I'm bullying.
Yeah.
I'm straight away, I'm bullied. And I've been hearing it a lot lately, especially at both schools I worked at. I'm bullying. I go, what's happening? This is a war zone.
Yeah.
I don't particularly see that bullying happening. Whereas now, like I said, the definition is repetitive, intentional, targeted behavior. And, well, the bullying card just seems to be pulled out straight away as a defense mechanism.
Yeah. And I actually like what you said there too. You've almost already said one very important strategy there. There does have to be a degree of development in the students within a school to sort things out. You don't want to be running in with this bullying card straight away, unless, as said, it is ongoing or there is a threat of extreme physical violence or something like that. And when I say also sorting out, it's not that, let's let them beat each other. Quiet. Let's not let them beat each other's heads in. Okay, it's can there be a dialogue going? Let's try to delve deeper, because in many cases they will sort things out, and we've seen before students that don't get along, then they're best friends.
You want them to sort it out.
Yeah.
Now, if parents get involved, teachers get involved, it can make it awkward for the kids at an early stage.
Yes.
And you want them to be able to develop that skill in sorting out their problems.
Yeah.
Whereas I've noticed, kid goes home to their parent, I've been bullied today, this person harassed me. You go, wait a second. As a parent, you got to ask, okay, what happened? Did you say something? Sometimes as a parent, you got to go on the back defensive and look a little bit around what's going on instead of, pulling out the weapons, coming in. This is it. I'm coming to defend my child, straight away. Where in the cases we've seen, your child could be the bully. Yeah.
And that's something we're going to talk to today as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you kind of address that side of it? Because obviously that's a hard pill to swallow, being told that.
I'd assume your child is the bully first.
Yeah.
Clear it out of the way.
Ethnic upbringings.
Absolutely. You walk in. Now, don't get me wrong. If your child is shy, quiet, reserved, hasn't really got many friends around, etc., I would still check anyway.
Yeah.
I would still have that in your mind just in case. But if they've got a whole bunch of friends around, they're having arguments, etc., first tick off the list that your child is not the bully.
Yeah.
And I remember with my daughter when we went there in even kindergarten. She's playing, she's well-versed, these friends like her, she's got this group of friends. I turn around to the teacher and I go, That's great, but is she isolating any girl? What do you mean? Well, she's popular. Is she isolating any girl? Not playing with her. And I got a weird look, but I want to know what kind of person I'm developing here. Don't give me all the fantastic things of my daughter. I know my daughter. I know what I'm raising. I just need to know, tick off the negatives. And the negatives are, check if your child is the bully.
Yeah. And that's very important because isolation can be a factor. Sometimes it's not so overt and you can see it. Yes, sometimes it can be these young children can be left out from social circles, which actually then brings us to then another aspect of bullying, which is a power imbalance. And that could be in a variety of ways that you could see it. It could be a physical power imbalance. That's what the first thing might be. It's the big kid picking on the little kid. So you might think of it that way. But then it also could be an intelligence imbalance because you do see it sometimes too that some kids and the way they can use their mouths, they do pick on kids for, getting better test results or, they know they can pick on a kid smarter and then the other kid won't be able to say things back. So they're like an easy target. Or power imbalance could also be, as you were kind of saying there, social. All right, that I've just got more friends. This kid doesn't have many friends. And then they know if they say something, the rest of their friends will jump in as well.
But then again, if they say something, that kid should be able to build that resilience to be able to take it and say something back.
Yeah.
So like you said before, repetitive, intentional, targeted behavior.
Yeah.
Banter, saying stuff, having that little bit of a cringy moment when someone says something inappropriate to you that may hurt your feelings isn't bullying.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to sometimes face those facts,
Yeah.
And maybe as the parent hat goes on, talk your child through it.
Yeah. And it's funny too because, you got me thinking as well because like the way teenagers interact too, sometimes they say things to other students and like they're figuring themselves out socially. And sometimes it might not actually be they're even trying to harass the other students just to see what kind of response is. That's how they interact with their friends. And then they're just interacting with this other person as they're trying to get them to know them. And your child could be like, they don't understand that, And so sometimes it's just a confusion on the social level.
Yeah, but boy, I know boys in particular do that. You have a bunch of friends, you tease this person.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, it's funny. That person may or may not take it. Then they tease that person.
Yeah.
That person may not take it. Then when they tease you, you're bullied.
Yeah.
And then you won't be able to socialize with your friends.
Yeah.
So if you're in that group of friends,
you got to be careful.
Yeah, you got to be careful. But give as good as you take, and that allows you to be a good social person.
Yeah.
It every time your feelings are hurt, it's not a question of, people coming to your rescue.
Yeah.
You're actually taking away the child's ability to learn.
Yeah.
It's almost a problem of the parents.
Yeah. And that also teaches them the consequence of their own behavior too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They're going around and this is how they're interacting with people. And then people start interacting back with them in the same way. Well, then you've got to be careful going into bat with them because that's something we've seen many cases of as well. Now, look, also just before we start getting into recommendations, I want to go over types of bullying as well. Yeah. So bullying can be as in physical form. As we know, when we've actually got the pushing, the shoving, the fighting. Okay, we've got verbal bullying, when it is aggressive, picking on each other, saying derogative things, that kind of area. We've got social or relational bullying, when it does relate to social circles and just, bigger groups picking on people that they may feel alone or smaller groups. That's a factor. And then we've got one that I've kind of kept on its own, and that's of cyberbullying, which is the new beast, my generation and above, we didn't really have it. And it's quite powerful because it's 24/7 and also has a dynamic related to technology. And sometimes your battles with your children in relation to technology is so they can maintain social status through technology and avoid being bullied or outcast.
With technology, maybe I'm old school, just take it off them. If you can't handle it, you're being bullied, switch it off. Get them to have that fight with you.
But you're right.
Yeah.
I was going to say, but sometimes I feel they have a social obligation to, be on that group chat at night, that's what I'm saying is the problem.
You are the parent. There is no group chat at night. And you make that obvious to your kids. Now, there are some things where you wouldn't allow your child to take a bottle of alcohol into their bedroom because they're thirsty. There's no chance you'd allow that. They take a bottle of scotch, I'm thirsty. This relaxes me. You would remove it off them immediately. And you do everything possible to do that. This is the same thing.
Yeah. It is hard. You do have to find your balance. You do have to find your balance because, then the next day they're all laughing at school.
They can
and
laugh
you've
at
missed
school
it.
if they're not mature enough to handle it. It is stressing them out. You remove it off them.
Yeah.
They can, if everyone's socializing then at school and they're laughing, they will pay the consequences themselves. You have taken that stress away from your child. The other stress that they get from their school isn't more or less than the stress of you removing that technology away.
Yeah.
And from what we're seeing, we did the podcast on the lack of sleep as well, how that would affect your child. Now, if your child's up all night on social media, communicating, they're not sleeping, remove it off them. You have that battle with them. It's better than them going to school, sleep deprived, stressed out from what was communicated across, especially on social media. On social media, you can say things that you wouldn't say to someone in their face.
Yeah.
You can offload things at 1 o'clock in the morning when you're half asleep that a person reading it can miscommunicate that.
Yeah.
And remember, these are children.
Yeah, it takes away context definitely as well. Yeah.
These are children, we're the parents. Whatever it takes, it's better you to have that battle with the child than the child going to school. Lack of sleep, cannot learn, depression kicks in, all the stress of the communication problem with the social media. And you know what? You're the parent. You allowed it.
Yeah. And look, it's hard as well because, if they're not in that group, then suddenly they might become the topic of the conversation, which can sometimes be very brutal for young people. And even it's not sometimes saying derogative comments. It's then they create memes and images and they pick on each other in that aspect too. So cyberbullying just is so tough to address.
It probably would need a whole podcast on that.
Look, we probably would, but the one thing I will say, and hopefully Kate can put a link on screen in relation to cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is very hard for schools to deal with because yes, it can relate to students within the school, but it's happening on mediums outside of the school where the school doesn't have power. Yep, you can send them screenshots and they can address it at a social level in school, but it's kind of something where you've got to go beyond. The actual people you contact in cyberbullying incidents is the actual ombudsman, okay? The commissioner of e-safety. And that's who you contact in relation to cyberbullying incidents. And then they can actually chase things up. So if you ever are worried, I want to be at the forefront with our recommendations. Yeah. The commissioner for e-safety is your go-to, okay? And they usually, help start developing a case. And obviously, pressure that's beyond the school. Schools are not policing systems. Okay, we can't enforce things that happen outside of school. So that is your avenue to go to. Get on it quick because obviously if it does become something that is reoccurring and ongoing bullying, well, they can continue to build that case and address it in a more formal aspect.
I would still recommend remove those electronic devices.
Oh, of course, going that with it.
It's a hard thing, Now, obviously, thank God there is the ombudsman. Now, the New South Wales, the Parliament is going to pass a law. Certain social media sites won't be allowed to kids, etc. But again, I did it to my daughter just the other week. Snapchat have a stream where you can snap away, and you got to create a stream with a friend. You got to keep snapping to keep that stream.
Yeah.
Friday, she's stressed out. I told her, hey, just put the phone away. We're talking. I got to keep that stream snap.
Yeah.
Phone was done.
Yeah.
Phone was taken away. I'll give it back to you. But I've lost my stream snap. Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
The question is, will I give you the phone back?
Yeah.
And she went quiet. She forgot about it. Man, she was a kid again.
Yeah.
She was a kid again.
Yeah.
And you're going, great, okay. I removed that stress away from her. Now, we're not talking to mature adults where you're going to have a nice conversation. You are going to convince them that it's a bad thing for them and they shouldn't. And you leave them with their electronic devices in their bedroom.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the parent.
Yeah.
From young, I still believe that you are the parent. You are letting them with that electronic device in their bedroom.
Yeah.
And if there are other issues there where you can't seek professional help immediately, do not leave it. If you believe that removing the electronic device will cause so much harm to your child, you need professional help. You just sometimes, you just got to accept what is
Yeah.
and then deal with it properly.
Yeah. And look, you've got to set it up as a boundary. I do agree with you that you got to be the parent in there too. But also, this is how this generation socializes. Like, we went to our friends' houses.
Yeah,
that Snapchat, I don't even know what it's called that you're talking about.
Monday she got a phone back, she can Snapchat again.
Yeah.
No problem. But then she realizes if this gets out of hand, it is removed.
Yeah.
So it's how you handle it.
Yeah. So you do definitely have to monitor it there too. But it is strange that we've got to see that it can be detrimental to them emotionally, not just socially in relation to bullying too, because that is how they interact. That is their social interaction. They're not ringing their friends on the phone. They probably don't see each other as much face to face after school as our generations did.
Yeah, but you can socially interact at 6, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
You'll see your friend again tomorrow.
Yeah, well, that's right. And that always would have been the cutoff, even for our generation too.
There's always a point. I'd still truly believe you are the parent.
Yeah.
You wouldn't allow your child with a bottle of scotch in their bedroom if they're thirsty.
No.
You would kick and scream that door down.
Yeah, 100%.
You wouldn't even compromise on that.
Yeah.
This could be just as dangerous.
Yeah. Well, look, that brings us to now our first point on supporting, students who may be bullied within schools. And the first one is open communication, which is just as you've been telling us about with your daughter. You've got to talk through things. So it is a challenging time. Obviously, when children are in younger year groups in primary school, they divulge a bit more. But then, when they're in the teenage years, obviously to their parents, they regress a bit more. All right, you get a bit more quiet, you don't know what's going on. So do try to keep open communication with your children, even if they're only giving you a little bit. Okay, keep that dialogue going so you can kind of see what's going. And remember to kind of follow up on incidents. So if they didn't mention that something happened with a friend, let's just say something happened with a friend, keep the conversation kind of going on that, because it could be minor, it could be major. We don't know.
I like to keep the conversation going with my children just to get to, have that communication.
Yeah.
Whether it's bullying or not, or she is trying to resolve an issue with a friend.
Yeah.
I help them through that issue.
Yeah.
It's not everything gets pulled into a bullying card.
Yeah.
So I try and slowly, we talk about a problem she's having. Okay, I give her my opinion. She may take it, she may not take it. There is a certain autonomy to her life.
Yeah.
Even though at this point she's 13 years old.
Yeah.
She can still make decisions with her friends, etc. But when she does feel threatened, that's a different scenario that I look at. You know, in my case, could be a bit extreme. Feeling threatened means you need to go to a teacher.
Yeah.
Straight away, and it's almost like that teacher needs to know what's going on, and this is I'll put my parent hat on, maybe martial arts instructor's hat on.
I'm scared.
But usually I don't particularly teach kids to go to a teacher and tell them I've been bullied. Because telling them you've been bullied, you're making me as if I can't handle it. Please, I'm such a victim. This person isn't going to stop. Can you help me? That's what he says.
Yeah.
As soon as you use the word bullied, I can't handle it. This person isn't going to stop. Can you help me? I particularly teach the kids, you go to one teacher, the teacher you believe is in charge of the group or your year, etc. And you tell them, look, this person is harassing me. They are not stopping. Can you please talk to them? I know what the school policy is on physical contact. Look, I don't particularly want to hurt them. Can you have a chat?
And harassment is the better word when it is in its initial stages.
If you go to a teacher and tell them, look, I don't particularly want to hurt them, can you have a chat to them? So that changes your mental state as the student.
Yeah.
You're not sitting there, I've been bullied, it's going to happen again, the person comes again. The teacher all of a sudden is like, oh, wait a second, this kid is telling me he's being harassed and they're going to hurt them.
Yeah.
Well, this is the school policy. I'm letting you know.
Yeah.
Can you please talk to them?
I'll respond to that one in twofold, okay?
So what would
I think rocket sets my head when I was saying that one.
If a kid came to you, Chris, and went, sir, look, year 9, such and such threw the ball at me. Look, I didn't do anything. They're saying stuff to me. I said stuff back. They pushed me. Look, I know the school's got a no hands policy. Look, I don't want to hurt them. can you please speak to them?
Yeah. I will speak to them,
Yes.
okay? I will
But it's a
affirm it.
different case of, I've been bullied, so look, they've been harassing me. Straight away in your brain, it goes, wait a second, this kid is serious.
Yeah.
They're bringing it on. Like, if you're not going to deal with this, I'm going to have to, things are going to happen.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say to you saying that to me is if you lay hands on that other kid, you'll be suspended, regardless of what that kid's been doing to you.
Sir, I know. I'm letting you know. Can you please, for their own safety, let them know?
And I'll say and I will say for your parents' sake, do not touch that kid.
I'm trying not to, very hard.
Okay. All right. But I will speak to the other child. Okay. And look, whatever it is that you're using a ball scenario there, but degrees, if it is kind of getting to that point where, okay, it's ongoing harassment, and it is fulfilling what we mentioned earlier. Well, you know what? I do have to intervene. I would have to address it with that student. If I didn't feel like I was going to get anywhere with that student after having a conversation with them, I'd call their parents and be like, look, this incident has happened at school, and I would let the parents know. And now we'll get to a bit later on what happens when someone calls you about your child being a bully.
Yeah.
But I would put a support, and schools also make records of incidents. So if there was an incident that, it looked like it was serious, we'd put it on the school database. Now, if the child feels like their voice wasn't heard, next step to encourage is parents contact the school. All right, because you want to make sure that if it is serious, a paper trail is starting. Still, I'm going to put it out there that if it does lead to a physical altercation and hands happen between students, they will both be suspended.
No.
We have to be firm on that. We can't have fights in schools.
Both deserve to be suspended.
Yeah.
But looking at the mental state of your child first.
Yeah.
Now,
we do, as we do as parents.
Now, in a situation where, you're clear that your child is not the bully.
Can you ever be truly clear?
No, you need to be certain your child is not the bully. They're not the one instigating it. And if your child is the bully, well, there are consequences. How do you check if your child checks to see if your child is not the bully? Okay, they've got a good circle of friends. They're quite popular. Okay. With their circle of friends, they seem to have another circle of friends they're having problems with. Is it really bullying? Or is it boys harassing each other in the playground, etc.? There are things you need to check off as a parent. Now, if it does get physical, for example, what I teach the kids, kid comes along, pushes you, shoves you, mate, straight to the teacher.
Good answer. Good answer.
Straight to the teacher. Sir, he's physically pushed me. I can't handle this again. I'm really going to hurt them. I'll be suspended. You call the ambulance. Now.
No pressure.
No pressure. I've been pushed. I've moved away. That puts you mentally in a state of, I'm not the victim here. Because the problem is, you've been pushed. That kid, I was just a push, sir, mucks around, sees you in the playground. You're anticipating that second push. You're always nervous in the playground. Okay, is this going to happen again? This person's going to come assault me again. They're not assaulting me. They're grinning at me. They're throwing insults at me. Okay, I've spoken to sir. That kid still ain't stopping. Every day you're walking into the playground with anxiety. This may sound harsh. You're better just fighting them and getting suspended.
Nah. Look, there's something...
for your own, your own personal thing.
Nah.
It was an incident when I was a casual teacher. First time around, no problem. Okay. I took an art class as a casual teacher. It was quiet.
Yeah.
Absolutely quiet. Nothing moved and everyone was doing their work. I didn't see it. This kid jumped across the table, smacked another kid over the head with a Rexona can.
Yeah.
Absolutely nailed him, and they both started fighting. I screamed them. I sat them both on the wall.
Yeah.
Called the year coordinator in. These 3 kids were harassing this one kid. The 3 kids at the back, I didn't see because the class were quiet, were harassing him in the playground. They threw a deodorant can in class, hit him at the back of the head. The kid that threw the deodorant can wasn't the kid this kid attacked. This kid attacked another kid. He didn't know who it was. He just jumped at them all angry, eyes firing, swinging that deodorant can. They both roughed each other up. I'm sure they were both suspended. Those 3 kids will never harass that one kid again.
No.
Has it happened?
Yes. Okay. A few things I'm going to say now. A few things.
This is what happened in class. And I went, okay.
with the child that you're kind of representing, the kid that says, if things aren't sorted, I'm going to take it in my own hands.
No, but you don't take it in your own hands. But
but that kind of kid isn't the traditional victim in a bullying situation. Yeah. That's the kind of student that they usually can give it as much as they can take it. That's how I usually can interpret that one.
Yeah.
They usually can look after themselves. The more traditional victim style, bullies know who to usually, and once again, we're talking about the traditional type of bully. They know to go for the quieter kid or the kid that looks like they can't defend themselves.
There's my thing again. We have to check that your child is that quiet kid.
Yeah, well, that's hard.
That kid that can't defend themselves. But then you reach a point where it can be a problem because the school, technically, what does it take to completely suspend the kid out of the school completely?
Well, you're talking an expulsion.
An expulsion.
Really, in this day and age, the only thing that can get a child suspended from a school if they are a WHS danger to other students at the school, which can be physical violence.
Yeah.
Okay, physical violence does fall under that category, like, in that brutality, okay? Or they're doing other things that make the school a dangerous environment for others. That's
super extreme.
Yeah, and you have to have almost multiple incidents of it to prove that it's a thing.
That's hard.
Okay? With your scenario as well of what happened in that art class, that is so common too, and another reason we can't encourage kids to fight.
No, don't fight.
Because things like that do happen. The kid that gets hit in the back of the head with something doesn't know who it was, and they nail the wrong kid. And
he did nail the wrong kid. But
and that is not a one-off.
No, but
it happens.
In that case, all those three were instigated, and you could see all three became nervous.
Yeah. But sometimes it's not even those three. They hit the fourth kid that had nothing to do with it. Because they all three of them point at the other kid.
Yeah.
So that's what happens. Okay, so never encourage it. You're a student listening. You do not lay hands on anyone. You never have a justification to hit anyone else in your school. Okay, it's a safe place.
You're suspended immediately. Yeah. But on the other hand, don't feel that, okay, I'm about to be assaulted. Yeah. Okay, I walk into the playground. Okay, I've got that tension, that anxiety because such and such are aggressive towards me, passively aggressive towards me. Now, here's the problem. Not that teachers don't want to fix it. Teachers want to fix it. As a teacher, I really want to stop this in its tracks. But if one child is adamant on harassing another child, we can talk to him. We can bring the parents in. Parents sit, we have a chat, this, that, put the kid on a monitoring card, etc., and most of the time it works.
Yeah.
As soon as you stick them on that monitoring card, they have to sign it, this and that, suspend them out, etc. Okay, hopefully it works. If it doesn't work, that child goes back to bullying that other one child, completely ruins that other child's life.
Yeah.
Ruins it in a way where for the rest of their life, they've got consequences because of that. Now, again, I say it, that child learn martial arts.
Absolutely. This is just a plug for jiu-jitsu, isn't it? Is that what we're going to
ultimate jiu-jitsu. No, for real, jokes aside, it's going to change the shape of your character. You don't need to win a fight. You just need to be there, presented that, okay, if I do bully this person, wait a second, they're not just going to sit there. Whatever it takes, they're not just going to sit there. And if they do sit there, then another bully comes along.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, you get a job. You're the only person taking the rubbish out of McDonald's.
Yeah.
You know?
That's very extreme.
Yeah. No, for real. I've actually had those cases where I'm the only one taking the rubbish out of McDonald's. Have you seen anything? Oh, no. No, I don't know. They seem angry.
Yeah.
And you think, okay, what's your high school life been like? What's the rest of your life going to be like? Yeah,
you don't want foundations and certain behaviors happening in high school and then they become reoccurring and they come in life.
But my take on it is, if you're anticipating it all the time, high school becomes hell.
Yeah.
The anticipation is worse than the actual bullying.
Yeah.
So if you're anticipating getting bullied, you're expecting it. It's going to come. It's going to come from that person, You're walking in there. It's going to come from that person. Without you reacting or being assertive to that problem, that's going to break you emotionally. Yeah. It'll absolutely break you emotionally.
Yeah.
So even just walking over to the teacher again and telling him, look, it is going to get physical. please deal with this. At least in your mind, you're anticipating a reaction. That's something, I am physically going to do something.
Yeah.
Now, if being suspended is the case after that, then maybe for your own mental health, take the suspension. And when you come to school as a parent, apologize. Never come blazing down, I'm coming here to protect my child. That was standing up for themselves. It gets you nowhere.
Yeah. You've touched on a number of things, Rob.
I'm going to get hammered by Chris now.
Going back to I'll start off with my recommendation first. Okay.
My recommendation.
Okay. I want to say, look, going back to tell the school. If you're a parent, you tell the school. Reason being, it's very rare for a bully just to be bullying one kid. If they're that way inclined, they're probably making a few kids grief. And that's actually something I want to say. If you feel like you are someone being bullied at school, you're not alone. All right. This same person is probably picking on a few people. So get the parents to contact schools. So like I said, it's about creating a paper trail for a school so they can see an ongoing pattern. And even if the ongoing pattern is not just towards your child, but then they start saying, well, 3 kids have made reports over this past week. And I have had incidents like that happen. And then when something did happen and the kid who was the bully, I contact their parents and like, no, he's being bullied. These kids do things to him. I go, well, no, I've got all these incidents and it's your son. That was the case. That data trail's there. So
absolutely.
So you got to have faith in the system.
No,
I got to really nail that one.
But I did say, warn the teacher.
Yeah. Look, don't warn the teacher because
tell the teacher
because you've got to be careful
in an assertive way.
Yeah. But you've got to be careful in developing a pattern in your own child with that mentality. And you obviously do teach discipline with jiu-jitsu too about when to use and when's the right time.
What I teach in jiu-jitsu is someone pushes you, just stare at them, walk away. Just stare at them confidently. Yeah. Super confidently. Someone pushes you at school. Okay. You walk away and you give them a really cold stare. Yeah. This man, if it wasn't school, you absolutely flattering you now. If it wasn't in school. Right?
I'm glad you made that part clear, okay?
And you can do that. Yeah. And usually kids that are trained up, I've seen them, they don't prove anything. They're the quiet ones that sits in the classroom. Someone says something, gives them that stare, doesn't get involved, no problem. That person knows to say something at a distance if they hate them. They never physically come and confront them. Because if they do, there's always that, wait a second, what if this person does get angry? Yeah. So there is that sense of confidence with that. So I can't say for all, but most kids that do train, and I've seen them at our school, they're the quiet ones. Yeah. Well, that's it. Like I said, the discipline. Yeah. You don't want to be encouraging outside of school either. No. Because then it's the police's problem. No, I'm not saying, I'm not saying chase them down. I mean, they just pushed you. Yeah. How bad was your situation for you to defend yourself? I mean, even in martial arts, you're playing in the playground. Yeah. Someone pushes you, they're angry. Yeah. Sweet. Okay. What's the problem? Yeah. But someone pushes you, they're angry, and you stepping in going, hey, what's the problem? Yeah. To someone pushing you and then you cowering away and you know what? Maybe I won't go to that playground where that kid is. Yeah. Maybe I won't try for that basketball kid. That kid's there as well. Yeah. Well, you're constantly checking to see, well, where is that kid now? And you're avoiding it, you're avoiding it, you're avoiding it, you're avoiding it. Either way, you have to confront it. There is no way out. That's that way. You have to confront it in an assertive way. Confronting things in a victim way, you begin to build that mentality for yourself. So even in an assertive way, telling a teacher, well, look, this person's harassing me. I know the school rules. I don't want it to get physical. Can you please deal with it so it doesn't? And yourself are putting yourself in a mental state where, well, the teachers aren't always going to be there to protect you. At some point, if the person comes swinging at you, it's going to have to happen. Yeah. There's no way out. I mean, you can even walk down the street, you have an argument with someone. You get an AVO on them. Okay, police serve them with an AVO. Here it is. You're not allowed within 500 meters. That person comes now. Yeah. So you can both go, you can fight, you can technically both go to jail. But there's a certain sense of, okay, I'm not going to walk outside of my home and go, someone's going to come and hurt me now. And I'm going to walk outside of my home, no, someone's going to come and hurt me now. You put an AVO on them, For the one reason only that if they do come, I've tried, I've put the AVO, I've done everything I can. It was their call. So it's just your own mental state of being assertive in life mentally gets you fight. And I'm not saying fight. If the person comes to hit you, say they're throwing punches at you, right? You have to fight. There's no way out. Get suspended. Like you cannot be physically assaulted by someone who can have a list of issues and not defend yourself back. I mean, if it means you're suspended, you're suspended. Then again, don't come to the school as the parent screaming, "Oh, but my son was only protecting themselves. Why are they suspended?" You apologize. You take the suspension. You come back. You go back to the teacher. You go, "Look, please deal with them because next time I don't want to hurt them worse."
Yeah.
And it's just a mental state that you're in. It's a mental state more than an aggressive thing. But you're not the instigator. Again, back to parents, make sure your child is not the bully.
Yeah.
And usually if you're coming and kicking and screaming at the school as a parent, 9 out of 10 times, your child is the bully.
Yeah.
From what we've seen.
It can be that way.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, just on that note, just two things to point out too, okay?
Yes.
With the intimidating thing. The first thing you got to be careful because, like you said, you don't know what the bully's angle is and there could be a mountain of issues. Sometimes they're trying to get a rise to provoke that violence. So you've got to be careful there.
Now, violence is person pushed you, you've walked away.
Yeah.
You know, warn the teacher. Go, "Look, this is happening."
Yeah.
Pushes you again, you've walked away. Warn the teacher, person's happening. Okay. Then they're not stopping you. It's more than a push.
Yeah.
Now they realize, okay, they're swinging at me.
Yeah.
You know, well.
Yeah, well, hopefully it doesn't get to that point.
But we're talking we're at very good schools.
Yeah.
So we have previously when I used to work at there, it is a phenomenal school. The school I'm at now as well, there are policies in place where, well-being, layers of well-being that can deal with things. There are schools where that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
There are rougher schools where, I've heard stories at public schools where, kids have been physically assaulted. Then that child can't be expelled because they have a right to an education. That child is back at the school.
Yeah.
So
there is tough situations.
So in those tough situations, unfortunately require for you to fight them. There is no way out.
Yeah. But
in that situation.
You got and look, I'm glad you're clarifying that because that's the other thing you got to be careful because we are talking about in many cases teenagers and look also with the teenagers too. Yeah. They've got to gauge it. It can't just be like, "I feel threatened, let's lay hands."
No, you start laying hands first. But you've gone through all the channels. You've warned the teacher. You've gone back. Same teacher. Keep at that same teacher, especially if you're at a more, say your school's a little bit rougher, there seems to be a lot of fights going on. People seem to be physically assaulted. And then you can go back to that same teacher after the incident occurs and go, "Well, this is what's happened." And that teacher more likely will be like, they've got a history as well, a written history of you.
Records.
Records of, okay, this and this has happened. And you know what? If you're suspended, great. Go to your teachers at school. Get the homework off them. "Miss, sir, look, I'm sorry I got into a fight. These things happen. I got suspended. Can you give me the work that I need to catch up on, etc." Everyone will look at you differently. Yeah. Absolutely. But in a well-run school that's well-funded, people are paying money to go, man, like I said, previously when I worked at the school, layers of well-being. Okay. The school I'm working at now, it's a small school. It's all hands-on, eyes are everywhere. Again, you get layers of well-being. But we have to face the reality of, more public schools, people of a lower socioeconomic status, things can get a lot rougher. I mean, this is the reality for some kids. You could be going into a war zone. So, well, ultimate jiu-jitsu.
That's the way.
Come down.
Yeah.
Or any sort of martial art. Having that confidence to a bully where they know that if it does get physical, you will get physical. And there's a possibility that bully is going to get hurt. There is a statistical higher chance it will not get physical.
Yeah. And look, you're right in saying that, you've got to usually a student that presents themselves as, capable of looking after themselves, they're going to unlikely be the bully, as I said earlier. But as you said too, if you go to training, well, you're most likely will be in that situation. And I will get to supports in a second. I believe physical bullying isn't the worst type of bullying either. So, Rob, what happens when it's more the social, emotional, verbal style? Because I think that can be more brutal.
Yeah, social, emotional, verbal. Okay. This is when it's a lot of communication between the parent and the child. Like, it's almost one of those things. It's not easy. It's very hard. It takes long communications with your child to steer them in a way that they can learn to deal with it. Because if it's social and emotional, you're coming to your child's rescue every time. Okay, again, you're coming to your child's rescue every time. Okay. Yes, if you feel it's getting out of hand, you have to. But do have those communication stages beforehand where you're trying to get your child to steer through that. And there are situations where I know from firsthand, from the tuition center, from the martial arts center, where these are capable, especially I've noticed them more with girls. These are capable girls, good-looking, strong, fit girls, where there's a bunch of other girls that really harassed them quite viciously in an undermining sort of way. And the people that are harassing them are the intelligent ones, the ones that are getting the marks. They're nice to the teachers, but then the principal was quite weak in her approach and allowed it. And I've I won't mention schools, but there were situations where they left the school, they went somewhere else, and they were a lot happier. So if the situation is happening where you've spoken with your child, okay, you're trying to deal around it, you're trying to build that resilience, but if you reach a point where, okay, sit with the principal, and I know it was a close family friend where it was a case of, oh, sorry, if the school doesn't fit your mold, you can leave. So, and this girl was super fit, super strong. She could have flattened those other girls viciously.
Like you can't respond like that.
But you can't respond. It was in an all-girls school, but they were obviously jealous of her. Jealous of her physicality, jealous of her looks, etc.
Which can be the case with either gender, and sometimes that does bring on bullying and isolation.
And my relative's mum, I won't mention names, she's an actual teacher as well. And her own response was, well, sorry, this is the school. This is, it may not be a fit for you. And it's a case of an individual case-by-case base, but it's that communication with your child. There's a certain point where, is it bullying? Okay, maybe not, maybe not. You talk it over with your child, that sort of, underslight bullying, and maybe a good, hard reaction could be a good response. Because these people, if you reach a point, God forbid with my children, where it's like, okay, it's reached a point where if that social, emotional bullying, it's getting too much out of hand, give them a physical response. Get suspended. Well, there has to be something.
Always bring it back to traditional fists.
No, not traditional fists, but man, I'm sorry. There's been a record. We've tried.
Yeah.
And you know what? Go to the school and then apologize.
We'll see. It is hard because it's with those ones. The reason I sent them to is it's harder to prove.
Yeah.
It brings me back to when I started. Actually, my first full-time job, all girls school. First time in an all girls classroom as well. The class looked like they were working perfectly quiet. They were all on task. It was beautiful. And then suddenly at the back of the room, one girl just looked at the other girl, and the other girl bawled out in tears and ran out of the room. And I'm just first year out teaching. I had no idea what happened. But that's how I had no data there. I was a teacher present. I was watching the class, but I have no idea what happened. No. I'm much more advanced now, okay? I'm like, but at that point, like, that's what it can be. And obviously there's a backstory there too. And there always is a backstory. The backstory can have two sides to an argument.
But that doesn't mean the girl that ran out crying is being bullied.
No, it doesn't. I don't know.
That's another thing as well.
But I mean, but I'm saying it's sometimes just so hard for schools to get on top of as well. So I've got to support the schools a bit too.
But like you said, the definition of bullying is constant and relentless.
Yeah.
Not a argument.
No, and that could be anything.
Oh, I had a situation as well where, both girls came into tuition center. Obviously, I had previous history arguing. The mums got involved. The girls seemed to be okay when they sat there. We did the work. All of a sudden, well, I don't want my child with that child there because it was bullied. I don't want my child with that child there because we've had problems with being bullied. Wait a second, how can both be bullied?
Yeah. And that's so common when that dialogue comes up among parents.
And this is in a center. And I went, okay, I'm not reading this. They worked fine. I don't get this. No, look, this is too much. Like, you're talking about your child. Your child's not talking. You're the one ramping it up. So as a parent, sometimes you got to be careful that you don't throw fuel into the fire of between two people that were friends, then they're not friends, and they're arguments. Now, if they were friends, then they're not friends, then they're friends. Okay, you really can't pull the bullying card out.
No.
You got to be careful, very careful.
You do. Look, and you said that one well too, because while you're highlighting there too, like, once parents get involved with each other, you can then destroy a possible friendship.
No, that's gone. Yeah.
Okay, so you do have to be calm, cool, collected as a parent when you're hearing about this. And once again, refrain from using the bullying term. Acknowledge social issues happen. They're teenagers.
Yeah.
Okay? Or children.
Let them sort their arguments out as best you can. But if you do see your child constantly stressed, that's a serious problem.
Yeah.
Serious problem that has to be dealt with. Your child can't be going to school day in, day out, stressed into a war zone.
No, they can't. Yeah. And I guess
it happens, but they shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know?
And look, we've mentioned obviously martial arts training as a support, and not even just for being something to, protect yourself, but also good just for the development in confidence and all that. Other supports I'd recommend too, because it mightn't be for everyone, but there's nothing wrong with counselling, especially in high schools. There is a plethora of issues that could be in the bully or in your own child that are creating this situation. So school counselling is available, and external counselling is available too. And, there are ways you can go through it too that make it more affordable as well. So seek internal and external supports as well for working through it.
Especially if you notice your child's quiet.
Yeah.
Okay. They seem to be too attached to the social media. Things are stressing them out. Absolutely counselling.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, if they're fitting out of the norm, it's not always a good thing.
Yeah. And some of the most beautiful people in schools are the school counselors. Like, they've got such empathetic hearts. I obviously am not privy to these conversations because anything that does happen there is confidential and, between the counselor, the student and the parent, depending on age. Okay. But it is, it's a chance for the child to talk to a professional. Anything that's said that is alarming will get flagged. Okay, but just imagining what the school counsellor hears too, like, I've got so much empathy for their situation, because I'm sure they hear the worst of the worst, but they are viable sources. So just, be aware of that there, okay?
And it does. Now, of course, there's I could be promoting martial arts, but it does help. It does help in a way where us as the instructors, we see kids come in shy. Eyes are down. Yeah. Okay. They're not physically interactive. Slowly getting them on the mat. Slowly getting them to do that physical activity. All of a sudden, there's a shove and a push done in a technique sort of way. They learn to react to that. A year and a half later, they're shoving, pushing, wrestling, moving through positions, protecting themselves, etc. Their whole characters change. Then all of a sudden, they can have that sense of, what? I'm a capable human being. So this is what the martial arts develops. It's not so much getting you ready to fight and that's it. You're walking into school. Come on, man, someone pick on me. No, it doesn't work that way. You see it, the development in that child where they've got that confidence in there, that sharp look about them where they're a capable human being. And they're the least likely to be bullied or bully.
Yeah.
And you can see the examples, for example, at the school you work, the kids that actually train with me at my center. It's that's the quiet one. Such and such sits in the room. He's got his friends. he doesn't really say much. He's quite quiet, does his work, socializes with his friends, but no one seems to pick on him. Well, of course they won't pick on him because they understand that he's got that stern look about him. But the stern look comes with being able to follow it up. You can give a stern look, but then what happens after? That's why with martial arts, when we teach female self-defense, I don't even call it self-defense. When the females come to train, for me, it's like, okay, what am I going to teach you? I teach you to fight. So what happens when someone attacks you? You're going to have to hurt them.
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt them, but they're trying to hurt you. Then they get into that mentality. Sweet, I'm ready to protect myself, not defend myself. Defend is always like that word bullying. Oh, I'm waiting for someone to hurt me to defend myself. No, I'm ready to protect myself. Okay, so when you have that level of confidence, it oozes out of you. People can sense that. People feel that from you. It's almost a case of, yeah, that person, I'm not particularly going to do anything with them. And it's been proven by psychologists as well. I think it was a social psychologist went around, and I forgot the guy's name. He wrote a book, How Dangerous Men Think. And what this guy did, he went and actually interviewed men that have physically brutalized women.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, what happens to the ones that got away? They reacted, they hurt me. So being that, having that victim mentality, having that sense of, okay, oh my God, what am I going to do now? It's hard. That is harder than actually a physical alteration. That is so much harder.
Because you've got to break that.
You have to break that. And sometimes being able to have that physical alteration doesn't mean you will. You are less likely to, because people know, okay, that person's physically capable. I don't particularly want to see them upset because, well, if I get them upset, well, they get on top of me. Who's going to stop them? And there's that saying, like, I want to be the one to dictate when the fight stops.
Yeah. And look, that is a very particular situation. And look, I think one of the things as well, I do want to tangent off with from the jiu-jitsu too, especially as a parent, and once again, if you've got more of a victim style child, whatever it does take to build confidence. And look, some people don't like physicality. Like I am one of them, and hence my stance and all that.
Too.
Yeah, so even if it is just team sports to build confidence, or some sort of group activity that also encourages socialization.
This is where I disagree. I've had situations where they've taken them to team sports, this and that. Oh, my son's getting bullied. What am I going to do? Bring him to training. Oh, he's been playing soccer. Run away. He's fit. Go. Nothing is like martial arts.
Yeah.
You just cannot replicate
but
that.
But it mightn't be for everyone's preferences. I'm saying, I'm saying it's great. I am saying it's great.
I know. But if it's in life, you have to come to terms with physical alterations.
But there's many ways around it. Dialogue can get you out of it, as you've said.
No. Do the dialogue. Walk away. What's the final argument? Physical alteration. Your dialogue and walking away is better done when you have that physical alteration in the back pocket. When they realize that, wait, this person is really gonna get vicious and violent with me. Having that as an option that you're not gonna take, but it's there for me. It's like countries that have nuclear weapons. You never want to use them, but it's ready.
But what about on that note? What if they've got a weapon?
Then two people with martial arts, if they're fighting, being able to physically take care of yourself changes your character. And with that, the student sitting in class, I know I had a homeroom where actually one of the children I did train, he was the quiet one sitting there.
Yeah.
And the other kids that were more naughty, this and that, were jumping around. He'd just go, yeah. And then one of them would turn around to me and go, do you think I can take such and such on? And as a joke, because I knew I'm training, I go, look, there's less painful ways of suicide. Sit. And it was a joke. Everyone had a laugh, etc., etc. But he didn't say anything.
Yeah.
He just laughed.
Yeah.
He laughed at the situation.
Yeah. But he's still passive and calm about it.
He's passive and calm because he knows that at any point, if they did, he'd just pin them straight down.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't even stand a chance.
Yeah.
You know, and that takes time to develop. We're not looking at, you know, super physically strong people that are going to walk into this martial arts room. No, anyone, you know, you come in slowly. It is a technical skill and an ability that changes your attitude, your character, and your personality.
Yeah. And look, I think as well, look, in that it's the confidence is the key. And I think
absolutely.
What if your child is someone who you might think is, you know, of a softer character or might be experiencing not just that, but anything that builds their confidence, you know, like I said, because we do hear all these situations outside of school, you know, and we have mentioned many that have happened, you know, beyond school. Well, you know, if we can calm down, we've got to address violence is not an option in school, so that they don't become those people outside of school that cause trouble.
Because usually from what I've seen at school, the violent kids, I mean, there's other things in their lives. It's almost sad when you see what's happening at home and everything else, and then you know, and then they're up in front of a magistrate.
Yeah, and that's a sad part.
That's a very sad part. It's almost like, how can we help them? What have we done wrong? Like, what can we change? This, that. And as teachers, we do our best, but you're very limited to a point. And me and you are lucky. I've been super fortunate to work at phenomenal schools. You know, the one I used to work at and the one I'm at now, I mean, it is a very caring place.
Yeah.
You know, it's all hands-on. All well-being is hands-on, you know. The situations we're dealing with, they seem even minor and trivial.
Yeah.
They are stressful to the students and the teachers, but in the scope of things, of what I'm hearing from, say, more public schools, you look at it and go, okay, you know, this is a very, very good place to bring your kid to work and et cetera, you know. But I go back again, life won't always be that way.
No. It can be ups and downs and all that.
Absolutely.
Before we change tunes quickly as well, like even just for a parent, if you don't really want to like sign your kid up to anything, but just kind of a starting point, you know, encourage some physical activity because I remember with one of my friends too, you know, it kind of aligns to what we've been saying too. My friend John, he said to me when we were in high school, look, as long as you look like you can protect yourself, you'll be okay. And that got me into weights in high school and that's what suited me back then too, you know, and that made me look more confident and feel more confident in that aspect too. But finding just what will make you as your child feel more confident.
Even just, you know, socializing.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, that's right.
Socializing is more confident.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so build up in that way.
Yeah, if you haven't got a good group of friends at school, school is a place where, okay, you don't want to change them from school. It seems to be okay, but you could socialize outside of school.
And I've seen that too with
soccer,
students.
Rugby, dancing.
They might have a band together.
That's how they get by. Life isn't all just in school.
And that's an important thing to show too, because that can sometimes be the pressure of when you are a victim of bullying that everyone hates me. But when you've got like social groups outside of school, like, you know, your soccer team, your martial arts group, your band, your music group, like all of that, then that shows them the world is bigger than school too.
But if school is becoming too stressful, it is a fight. The whole time it's a battle. The school is not dealing with it. Change schools.
Yeah, well, that hopefully is
change.
It is your last resort.
Yeah, I've seen it.
We can't speak for all schools, eh? Yeah.
I'll look. I've been very fortunate with the two schools I'm at, and I've seen schools where people do pay money, and I've had many situations where you go, "What do you mean the school didn't deal with it properly?" Not just one, many situations, and the students have changed schools and are very happy.
Yeah,
are very happy, and this is one of the things where, as a parent, you know, if you feel that the school is not addressing it properly, you feel that, okay, your child is harassed, they're doing it in the undermining way where it's really stressing them out, you have spoken with your child, etc., man, change schools.
Yeah.
And every time in my experiences in the centre, from speaking to kids that have done that, they've been happier.
That's actually a good recommendation on a few aspects too. Like we've had some family friends who've done it for that reason too, and you know we understand as well. But and that's why, because I was actually going to say, if you're, and this is our next part, our final part on what to do if your child is identified as a bully. sometimes that's a good thing to do. Once again, it was because
check that first.
Check
that first.
because sometimes they might be involved with a group, and that group is encouraging them to do things, that are not right, but they think that's how they're going to fit in. Sometimes that can be removing your child from the situation and giving them a fresh start at a new school. Could be the way to go. But that's obviously now the angle we're going to take to finish up today.
Especially what if your child's a bully?
Yeah, so the school's called you and they've said, look, we've got a number of reports, that your child has been doing this, this, and this to a variety of other students, and really, we've got to keep an open mind. You and me both said, we'll be the first to actually agree and say, yeah, that probably is our kid.
Yeah, because I want to check that. I'm not saying my kids are bullies.
It's exactly the same, yeah.
We're the parent. I want to check that first.
Yeah.
You want to just make sure and check that first and always have it in the back of your head, what if?
Yeah.
What if?
And you've also got to keep in your head too that what you hear from your child is their interpretation of their events that might be emotionally driven and not necessarily the truth. They say there's three sides to every story.
Yeah.
There's one side, the other side, and the truth.
And is your child, we were just mucking around. Oh, wait, you were mucking around? And how did that make that other person feel?
Yeah.
Wait, you thought that was mucking around. Really? Yeah. Grind them down a bit. So at what point did you look at that other person's reaction as you were mucking around?
Yeah.
So now we have a serious situation. And serious situations need to be dealt with seriously. Yeah. So if you do realize your child's the bully, well, man, okay, what are your social group of friends?
Yeah.
Back to that social media. You're the parent.
Yeah.
You have to really come down on your child and actually change things.
Yeah. You do have to, having those conversations are extremely supportive. I've said it a few times in relation to other topics, you got to show you're on the same page with the school. If they're calling, they're not calling without data. No. Okay. They know things. And then you're obviously coming from a parent aspect, and it could be difficult, especially if your child's in those teenage years and they are putting their walls up, but you want to look for potential sources, and there's many potential sources. There is social group we've mentioned. There could be family circumstances that are impacting, it's very common for children these days to be living between two houses, which is an unfortunate situation as well. And I know parents are trying to do their best on both fronts.
It's hard.
To support many levels.
Look, it is very, very difficult, but do not come into the school blazing.
Of course, you can't. Blazing. You cannot.
You will not get the story. You will not help your child.
No.
And you will make it worse. There's never been a situation when our parents came into the school super angry, ready to fire everything along, and that's it. And if you are feeling that way, go to another school.
Yeah.
And there are situations where you are justified to feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, like I said, we've been fortunate enough with the places I've worked, but not every place is like that.
Yeah.
You're the parent to make that decision. So I would strongly recommend, if your child is a bully, you need to seriously look at their circle of friends. And don't assume that they're being influenced as well. Look at the case where your child may be doing the influencing.
Yeah.
It's I know it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes to realize this could be my child, but like I said, they're slowly in the development phase.
Yeah.
And so you got to always, look at that, tick off the worst case scenario and work your way down.
Yeah.
And it's usually I find for myself, and I've spoken to other people, it's the best way, because you are wary of your worst case scenario and just double check it.
Yeah.
And because if it is, the earlier you deal with it, the better. You can grab a child that could be a communication problem. They could be a slight speech impediment. They can't communicate properly. They're getting frustrated. So they're lashing out. Yeah. There could be other things there that you can start dealing with, putting even the bully, putting him or her into a sport. Getting them into other
positive
social activities.
That's something Mean Girls,
the same
isn't
as
it?
the victim.
And she ends up going to hockey at the end and it helps her deal with their aggression. So that actually is a very good one too.
So what you do for a child that's been bullying and the bully, it's the same thing. Even martial arts will help a child that is a bully.
You're going to double your intake now.
I know, it does.
They can all sort it out on the mats.
I know, we had a situation where they hated each other. One came training, the other one came training, and they both calmed down. We can calm one right down. We can build one up. So it does both. It's a very humbling experience when you when you step on the mats. Even for a bully, the bully realizes that, okay, this is a physical expression of my body, of things that I'm learning to do, but I need to do it in a more calm way. Okay, the martial arts instructor is not going to tolerate me being a bully. And I tell my students, I tell them, mate, I know teachers from many places. I know teachers in a lot of schools. If at any point there's any situation that you're the bully, we're gonna have serious trouble.
It's funny,
serious trouble. Like it's and they all are a bit taken back by it. Now I'm teaching you these things, but we've got instructors in many schools. We've got parents in many schools. If at any point you are identified as the bully, you're going to have to face up to me. We're going to have a long, serious chat here.
Yeah. As I was going to say, when I was a year 10 coordinator, I actually ran into one of my students down at the park with his martial arts trainer, and he introduced himself, great bloke. And the student himself was a great bloke too.
Yeah.
But the instructor came up to me and said, is he being a good boy at school? And not necessarily from the bullying aspect, but more so like with his studies and that. Because if I hear anything negative about him, he's out. He's going to be suspended from the martial arts for a few weeks. So it was good to see that the instructor was on side.
Yeah, we are. As a martial arts instructor, we want to move you forward. We will make you strong physically, mentally, and we'll make you a productive social person. Now, whether that means calming you down or building you up, either way, they're both opposite ends of the spectrum. We can do that.
They can do it.
Yeah.
Okay. But like I said, if it's not martial arts thing, and a physical outlet,
we will make it your thing,
or a creative outlet, they could all support the bully as well.
It's an art. It's a martial.
It's an art.
We will turn it into an art form.
It's an art form. Martial science.
Martial science.
That's it. Okay. So look, have those conversations with your child, and try to get to the crux of what the issue is. And obviously boundaries need to be set at home too. We've spoken about it all comes
from the home.
Yeah. Work with the school, be on side. And, even on that front too, you mentioned guns blazing. I've had instances, and not necessarily in relation to bullying, just sometimes when there's a disagreement with the school, like the parents gotten such a negative attitude towards the school just by the school making a suggestion about behavior. It actually ruined the students' opportunities at the school. Like then they had no faith in the system, but really we were just conveying information, and it's sad to see sometimes students leave because the parents ruined the relationship with the school. But at the end of the day, the kid was happy. And I've only had a handful of incidents like that.
Look,
the child was happy, the parent wasn't.
Look, the parent makes the decision at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And as a parent, be careful.
Yeah, but it's how you respond to bad news.
Yeah, true.
That's the sad part. Like the kid accepted the behavior. It was the parent that wouldn't accept us addressing the behavior.
That's hard.
Yeah.
I've had situations like that in the tuition center.
Yeah.
Where, I really care for the children. I really want to get the information across. And the parent just overwhelms, gets in the way. And from a teacher's perspective, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
There is, at the end of the day, we educate your most prized possessions.
Yeah.
They are yours.
Yeah.
They are yours. We can only do so much where, we've got them in front of us. We could have anywhere from 10, 12 to 30 kids in the class. Now, it doesn't matter how well your class is prepared. You always get your lessons ready. You present it in a very charismatic way where the kids are engaging. You want them all to learn, but they're individuals sitting there staring at you in front of you. Yeah. It's the parent at home that will bring us that child ready to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the reality of it. You at home as a parent will bring that child to us ready to learn.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy, you feel disgruntled with the school, there could be a good reason for it. There may be not a good reason for it, but it's your reason. Yeah. There's no choice, find another school.
Yeah. And if that's the way it is, that is unfortunate. But you kind of set the tone with your child. So, if you're saying the school's ridiculous, your child's going to go to the school with that attitude and, it will impact them. So your reaction to the news will impact their attitude toward the school and then in turn their education, the whole reason why they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know.
The other thing that can support too is to teach your child empathy. That your child probably is bigger, more fit, more confident, more socially connected and good with friendships Well, they've got to understand that not everyone has those skills. Not everyone is fit. Not everyone, is good at talking to other people. Some people are built more introverted.
Usually, I've noticed kids like that have those skills. They have got that empathy.
Yeah.
They usually sit quietly, help the person next to them, etc. They usually get they're quite popular, and that popular isn't a case of I've just got my small group of friends that I'm going to terrorize everyone else with. People generally like them.
Yeah.
And if you are that kid, do reach out to that quiet kid in the corner.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah.
I know myself as a teacher. Okay, these kids are well adjusted. Okay, what's that quiet kid doing in the corner?
Yeah.
When they say, oh, you get to know the bad kids' names. I want to know the quiet kids' names.
Yeah.
And I make an effort for that. So in the classroom, it's a question of, okay, it doesn't really say much, doesn't answer the questions. Oh, how are you finding the work? Yeah. Do you understand that example? Do you want to quietly show you? It's all good. Yeah. Yes, sir. No problem.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. So it's that sort of nurturing, caring approach.
Yeah.
And
that actual characteristic, that's how you know who your school leaders are. When you see that student who looks out for other students, then you've got a child that's on their way to leadership within the school and in life.
Doors open.
Yeah.
The whole world opens their doors for you.
Yeah, like that is such a good
university professors,
characteristic.
companies, etc.
Yeah.
And this is our goal. I mean, these are the type of students we want to build.
Yeah.
And these are the type of, sons, daughters that you want.
Yeah, so that is some behavior, instill that empathy because that is leadership skills in life. Look, just the final point I'll just mention, a bullying incident has come full circle, you've got the news and all that. What would you then encourage, to that child, everything's happened. We want to then talk about post-bullying, like, do you encourage your child to rectify it with that other student?
I would debrief with the child and talk it out. Make sure you get a good debriefing with the child about the bullying.
Yeah.
And the bullying is over.
Yeah.
It's finished. Start a new slate.
Yeah.
So, having that caring, that nurturing factor, you think, okay, don't instigate anything.
Yeah.
Student says hello to you. You say hello back.
Yeah.
You smile back. There's no tit for tat.
Yeah.
Soon as you get into tit for tat, were you even bullied?
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's it, eh?
Yeah,
Then it's a two-way street.
Yeah, that's a two-way street. I mean, come on, man. When do you become the victim and then the perpetrator?
Yeah.
Yeah. So even if this say a person who's bullied you, the systems come down on them really hard. Well, now you need to smile.
Yeah.
You need to be a good person. You need to
show them your good side,
No, the bullying is finished.
Yeah.
It's over. That person's on a monitoring card.
Yeah.
They've been, in a school that has all those layers, and most do. Okay, it's been put through the ringer. That person may or may not be, remorseful.
Yeah.
But either way, if you then give the attitude, then, man, were you even bullied? And are you the bully now? And then goes back again to saying, well, at what point, does the victim become the perpetrator?
Yeah.
But then again, goes back to our definition of bullying. At what point are they just trying to sort themselves out?
Yeah.
Or is it constant,
reoccurring
targeted harassment? So that's another thing. I mean, I think the word bullying has just been thrown out there so much.
It is too overused.
A slight argument. You don't like something, I'm bullied.
Yeah.
I don't feel good. This is it. Why am I bullied? And then the reason why the students do that, because they get a reaction.
Yeah.
I say I'm bullied, teacher comes along, well, that person's bullying me. Now I know that person's going to get in trouble. I have one-upped you.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't let it become a game like that either.
And then it does become a game like that. I've seen it time and time again.
Yeah.
But someone who is constantly bullied may not even say something.
Yeah.
We've got to be careful as teachers to keep an eye on those quiet kids.
Yeah, and look out for them.
I had a situation where this kid was, his growth, he was little at the school we were working at. And they think it's funny. They lifted him up, turned him around, this, that. And they finished, they laughed. Little, kid laughed, and I went to the kids and went, how's that funny? How's that funny? What if I picked you up, turned you around and threw you back on your feet?
Yeah.
Would your parents come here and assault me?
Yeah.
What if a year 12 came along and picked you up, spun you around and threw you back on your feet?
Yeah.
Would you be calling your parents here that the person assaulted you?
Yeah.
And they all were shocked.
Yeah. Empathy.
Yeah.
That's-
They all
that's
were.
it. That's what
And
you're
they
teaching.
felt bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, they felt really bad. It was
Yeah.
just something you did to this little kid. He found that funny. No, he likes it funny. He finds it funny because he likes to socialize with you.
Yeah.
Now you're humiliating him.
Yeah.
And when I pointed it out to them,
yeah.
their faces dropped.
Yeah. Yeah. You pretty much define it to them.
Yeah. And it's sometimes you, as teenagers, as kids, you may not see your actions are hurting someone.
No, that's right.
You got to be careful with that too.
Yeah.
But post-bullying, if your child is the bully or your child is being bullied, either way, debrief.
Yeah.
Talk it over with them. And once it's over, it is over.
Yeah.
That's it. There's something we do as teachers, I hate your behavior, not the child.
Yeah. That's it. You never make them feel that way.
No.
The one thing that I'm very pro, but it is case by case, is restorative justice. Usually, like in an instance like the one you just said, you might get the students together, just so they can say, sorry or something like that and talk through kind of what led to that incident if it was an ongoing thing. But then I have had situations too where the victim's like, I just don't want to see that kid. Just keep us away from each other. And that's fair too.
I know. If you've been tormented so much.
Yeah.
Now, here's that could really go bad. You've been
that's
tormented.
Case by case.
You've been tormented so much.
Yeah.
The person doing tormenting does everything possible to get the school off their back. But they're still at school.
Yeah.
Sees the person, walks off, and then makes a slight remark.
Yeah.
Just a slight remark of like, okay, I'm sorry, yes, sir, this, that, as you walk away. That like a grin and where are you going now? Walks off.
That's where it is. Sometimes it's just looks and faces and we know.
But it is because, I'm playing the school system.
Yeah.
And now I'm sorry in front of you, this and that, and everyone else, and yep, no problem.
Yeah.
And then there's just that little grin of like,
yeah, I know.
You watch later.
That's why you got to measure up. But like the scenario you said, that's when it's great.
If a student goes, I don't want nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
The person who clearly did the bullying, mate, you stay away from that child.
Yeah.
Any sort of instances where you don't even make eye contact.
Yeah. But it is good for them to try to show that they're both human.
Yeah. They're both human. I'd be more worried about, I'd be worried about both.
Yeah.
I'd really...
Because all kids have a backstory.
I'd be worried about both. Like, how's your life going to end up?
Yeah.
And how's your life going to end up?
Yeah.
Like, both, you're headed for serious social issues.
Yeah. So look, do work with supports, work with the school, get your child involved in positive things outside of school, which may be jiu-jitsu.
Come on, honestly.
Maybe soccer, weights, music, bands.
Yeah. Get your child involved in an activity. And, obviously, I'm biased with it, but
no.
I've seen it time and time again, getting your child into a martial art.
You've seen a successful formula there, haven't you?
We have seen more than a successful formula. I've seen kids change in front of my eyes. Literally. Literally. When you look at them and go, okay, they're confident now. And you go, all right. Even look up Kelly Slater, 6-time world champion. Mm-hmm. He basically says, before you do anything else, get your kids in jiu-jitsu. So
that's a podcast topic maybe on its own. Okay.
Yeah, if we can get Kelly Slater in, please come along, to our podcast and tell us the benefits, why you said that for jiu-jitsu. But please, we do care about your children really well, that you are sending us your most prized possessions. And either way, whether the child is the bully or child is the victim of the bullying, as a teacher, you want to fix both. We're not just here to
label and
we're not just here to come down on your child like a ton of bricks, or
communities,
or dismiss it. I can see the stress that it does give teachers.
Yeah,
it's not an easy thing doing your job, and
it's usually like both kids.
Yeah, and it's a stressful thing. I see the teachers at the new school I'm at, where, we're going to bring one on a podcast. She's the head of well-being for the whole school.
Wow. It'd be lovely to meet her.
Oh, yeah. She'll be on in, a few more episodes.
Yeah, good.
And lovely lady, but it is a stressful job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-being's tough, man.
Well-being's tough on a teacher. For me, I'd say well-being is the hardest part of the profession.
Yeah, it is hard, dealing with people, emotions, clashes between people, and then, bullying incidences as well, and the consequences for it, heartbroken parents. It's all a part of that, but that's a whole other topic. I think.
Absolutely. No, we could
well-being.
do a whole well-being topic.
Yeah.
I think we'll need to.
Excellent. I think on that note, Rob.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us again.
I'm Chris Kalodikis and I'm a pacifist.
And I'm Robert Namoski. What am I?
The ultimate jiu-jitsu master, mate.
I don't know. I'm a human. I'm a human being and love the best for everyone. Honestly. Okay. Thank you for joining us again. Please, if you like our podcast, like, subscribe, and do throw something in the comments. I'm sure with this topic, please, we'd love to hear your
Put a
opinion.
poll on this one, Kate.
Yeah,
baby.
definitely.
Team
Please,
Chris or Team Rob, mate?
Team Chris or Team Rob, please give us your opinion. Feel free to put it in the comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank
See
you
you
very
guys.
much. See you again. Bye. That wasn't too much. Tried to make it. That was a good one.